Alright, so I'm going to do a video on the early Springer front forks. This is on a Z50, just how to disassemble it and break it down, clean it, and repair any worn parts that may need to be replaced. So we'll start with, I'll zoom in here with a couple of the tools that I will be using. So you're going to want a spanner wrench. This one I got off Amazon. It's a 3/4 to 2 inch spanner wrench, and I'll show you where to use that. A small punch that you'll be able to get your roll pin out of the assembly, the fork assembly. A little hammer. Once you are putting yours back together, I use some grease to help lubricate all the little moving parts, the springs. Also, you're going to need a little vise that I use, like a little benchtop vise. You want to get yourself two roll pins that are going to work for the Z50. CT70 and Z50 are different sizes, so make sure you order the appropriate roll pin for which fork you're working on. CT70 is larger or longer. And for this particular fork, I am getting rid of the slop, a lot of slop in the factory design. So I have some TRC Delrin fork bushings that's going to help tighten up the front end quite a bit. So we'll jump into it and I'll show you how to start disassembling. So first things first, you're going to either have this on your bike. I'm just showing you on the bench here with the front fork tube and the lower fork leg still in there. With an original cap here, that's what I'm going to end up using the spanner wrench for. I know the aftermarket replacement ones don't have these holes in it that you can use a spanner wrench, but for an OEM, you're going to want to pull down your boot and expose the hole. It's right here, and these may be able to be twisted off by hand, lefty loosey righty tighty, or if they're on there really tight, then that's where you're going to use your spanner wrench. So I'm going to go ahead and put my tip of my spanner wrench into that hole, get it nice and snug, and then rotate. Once you get it loosened, broken loose, you can just thread it off. So if you have a torn boot, these forks have to be completely disassembled to put the new boot on, and a new cap if you want to put a new beauty cap on. So hopefully at this point, once you get your cap off the thread, your fork will slide out, and you can go ahead and just put this to the side at this point. So now I have my entire fork leg out. So you can see it's a very basic design. You have a spring, a top part that your actual thread from your nut is holding your top of your assembly up at the top bridge or top plate of the triple tree. There's a little piece of rubber inside of here that's a fork stop, along with another piece of rubber down here. It's a fork stop that bump into each other to prevent you from bottoming them out and breaking the components inside. This is the part I'm going to be replacing with the Delrin piece, because it's as these get worn out, or even original ones, they still allow for a lot of slop and movement inside the fork tube. So this Delrin hard plastic that I'm going to put in there is machined very tight, and it's going to help take up the dead space that you feel when your fork is all wobbly. Under here, you're going to find where the roll pin is, and I'm going to go ahead and just clean this off real quick. So when you take this fork leg apart, underneath the plastic piece here, there's a roll pin in here that you're going to need to push out with a punch. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a second, using that little benchtop clamp and a punch and a light hammer. Alright, so I got my fork leg assembly and the top clamp here, or the bench clamp, and I got my punch, and I'm going to use the punch to push this roll pin out. So I'm going to give it some light taps with the hammer. Better grip on it. Alright, so now that that's been knocked out, you can disassemble the top part of the lower leg from the lower part of the lower leg. Let's take that out of the clamp. I'll show you how these come apart here. Alright, so we got the roll pin out. I was having a little trouble getting the two parts separated, but I just wiped it off, all the grease, cleaned it off so I could work with it better. So, roll pin's out, should be able to separate it now, and just kind of, I'm hoping this will come out this time. Just kind of work itself out here. Go. Now we got two parts separated. Got your top and your lower leg. You can slide off your bushing and your cap. And you don't really need to go any further than that. I have upgraded springs before where I can lengthen or shorten them, or put a higher spring rate spring in, then you'd have to take this apart. But for this video we're just doing a basic rebuild, but we're going to add one extra beneficial part to it. Alright, I guess I don't want to skip this step, so just in case you ever need to get the spring removed from the spring holders, the top and lower mount, sometimes these are broken off. The top part, these little nubs are broken off, or you're going to change out the spring, like I said, for something more suitable for heavy adult riding. What you're going to want to do is put your aluminum part into your clamp, and you can see that there's two flat edges to this, along with the same thing for the other side, two flat edges. So just want to go ahead and get a clamp, a vise or a clamp onto that part. Let me see if I can clean this off a little better real quick. And before I clamp it in there, you can see where this spring, it screws on, and you can see where it starts. So it starts right here, the threading at the very top. So I'm going to end up putting a punch right into there to knock this thread loose. So I'll show you right now. So get a good clamp on it. And then I'll start turning for you. And And you essentially just do that until you wind off the spring and you have access to your part to replace or put a new spring on. So I'm not going to take it all the way off, but I'm showing you at least how you can do it. Alright, so just to quickly recap, I'm going to be replacing these old cap and rubber. Like I said, the difference between the OEM and the new ones are usually they don't have this hole in it. Some may come with it, so can put a new one on. I am upgrading this bushing, the OEM bushing, to this Delrin very hard plastic, very tight tolerance bushing now. So this is gonna go, and then you got your roll pin. So those are the 3 parts that we're gonna show you here next, putting together. Alright, so before you reassemble the top and bottom of the leg together, we are gonna put all our parts on. First thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and put my rubber on, the cap. You get that pushed all the way down. And then your Delrin piece, you want the lip to be facing down because that's what's going to catch the fork tube. So I'm going to slide this on. Much better fit in there. I don't feel any real play at all as opposed to the plastic one that was on there originally. So that's going to slide that out of the way. And then I'm going to use my bench vise to re-push or reseat my roll pin. So I'm going to get these 2 parts aligned. So this is very important orientation wise, especially on the brake side where you have the brake holder and the brake cable holder. You're going to want to remember location of how the top is oriented with the bottom. And for this one, these holes, the weep holes for the tubes, for the moisture to get out of them, are always facing inside towards the wheel, never on the outside. So you want to make sure that's facing inside and that your nub is facing the same side as that hole when you put this back together. So hole and nub, and get it set in there at that point for your roll pin to go in. And then I'm gonna just put this in the clamp here, or vise. Make sure my holes are lined up on both sides. Get my roll pin in place squarely. And then slowly start to give it some pressure to feed it back in. Don't pound it in. Alright, so here's a better angle showing you how I'm going to press this pin in. So you want to remember, make sure your stuff is orientated right. Your top mount, your top part of your fork leg with your bottom fork leg, and then you can proceed to press. Alright, so we're just about all the way in. I'm going to do a little fine tuning with that, but you get the idea here. Alright, so I got the pen pushed in all the way, evened it on both sides, but what I actually found was that these roll pins, these part numbers 51526 064 000 for Z50s are a little bit longer than what I pulled out of the original Z50. So once I got it on there, I had to do a slight grinding on it because it stuck out just a little too much. And once I ground off a little bit of that roll pin, I'm able to slide all the way up now, as opposed to it hitting it and stopping there. So I did a little bit of grinding there. But now I've got fork lathe completely reassembled. Remember, you got to make sure your parts are all on before you put this together, or you did it wrong. I did a lot of cleaning of the old grease that was packed in here with just a towel and my hand, unfortunately. I'll just repack that with that grease that I have, and we'll be ready to reassemble it back into the fork tube. I'm going to do the same obviously with the other side of the fork leg. I'll take that one apart and reassemble it, but that's the basics of rebuilding a basic rebuild for your Springer front fork. Alright, any other questions, write them down in the comments section and I'll be happy to answer them. Thanks guys.